Max, you're a co-founder of the UA. You're also an advisor to Digital Ministry of the Ukraine, and you're one of the co-organizers for DGAV events, that stands for Distributed Governance Events, and you're a very dear friend of mine. So as far as I understand, you have a presentation on DGAV, and I'll read it all to you. So I hope that you're able to share the screen with us.
I need permissions for that.
Rob, please grant us permissions to share our screen.
Oh, I see them. You can hear me well, right?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Thanks so much, Anja. A very warm intro. As I'm host now, do I need to admit new people to the That's okay. I'm a professional like conference facilitator, so I'm happy to be in this position. I'm Max, pleasure to meet you all. DGAV Foundation logo is here, and I'm gonna talk mostly about the past we did in this organization for last almost 3 years now. I'm one of the co-founders of this thing, which we'll be talking about. But before I'll speak a lot about my experience and expectations and hopes and fears about distributed governance. But before that, let's clear up what that is. I know there's already some workshop laboratory going on through the conference, but maybe for the people who, for the people who are not familiar with the topic, distributed governance is a set of protocols and tools that will allow us like scalable governance, scalable management and systems, purpose-driven, really resilient, agile, more efficient. It also goes with some downsides and risks, and we'll talk shortly about that. But one of the messages I wanted to deliver is the difference about the decentralized and distributed. We usually call this field DGAV, but there is quite a difference about, like we all know centralized organizations, for example, right? Everything goes from the center. We have the centralized system already now, as I see, even in the government's organization, there are different decision-making departments and so on. But what we're mostly interested about is the concept of distributed, where every node, every person, every organization is in contact with all the others. And around this idea of such networked organizations, we build a movement, we gather people who are interested in researching that. We have a community with events, meetups, research groups. We have a core group foundation that led this for like first years. And there is a network of people who you can talk to, which are super diverse on the backgrounds and the paths they walked before. But it all started. Can I somehow undraw this? I'm not sure. Annotate. Okay, yeah. These are the people who we started with, and you can see clearly Anja here. This is the core group of the DGAV Foundation. Also wanted to mention, besides Phoebe, Anja, Ian, Tim, and me here, there's Ella and Martin that worked with us for all these long years. So it's really important to mention them. And of course, like as we're talking about distributed governance and self-organization, no organization, like it's always somebody who's organizing that. It won't organize itself. So why did we start to do this? Why it's interesting? I'll give you an example on there, like I call it a day in news. So I'm following weekly all the news about the industry, just to be in touch with all what's happening. And we can clearly see that the field is developing quite, democracy, yeah, in a way. I'll admit new people to the group. And, oh, sorry, too many windows. Yeah, we saw many news about the successes in the sphere. So, for example, Dash is one of the protocols. So they use voting via blockchain to distribute around almost $1 million monthly on their spendings. And we see protocols like EOS raising billions of dollars and trying to set up the same governance, but they have some things like vote buying in their system or blacklisting. Recently, we saw the rise of DeFi, decentralized finance, and the governance in that field is one of the most advanced, because we see the protocols are run by the community, and with such an approach, some protocols could raise more than $1 billion just in a week. Of course, it's some kind of trend. It won't be forever, but we see the huge interest in that, like distributed courts emerging and different organizations established for the ecosystem development. But there's always a gap. As we saw it, the first thing, as I mentioned, there's quite a lot of news. To follow the scene, you need to read many articles, news, talk to many people, and it makes it quite hard for people from other fields like lawyers or policymakers to dive into that. So one of the problems we saw and wanted to resolve is this information overload. We try to gather information clearly, results of the researches, summaries, and so on. We try to engage more cross-functional specialists. I'll show you afterwards who are in our community, but it's really a diverse group. And we have really many companies in the field, but they are so occupied with building their communities, their processes. It's not always time, place, and chance to collaborate, while the task this field is trying to solve are really huge. So all in all, our vision is to find this technology, culture, practices for the scalable systems so people can flourish and create more cohesion. And we do that by connecting people to discover and implement those tools. I won't stop too much here. It's just experience people receive in our community. The conference we did, the mapping of the industry, the network map of connections that allowed us to see the main drivers in the network. We also have quite a lot of research starting from the DAO. DAO is one of the central ideas we started to research. And you can see that in a newborn field, there is no clear definition on anything. So we need to gather, what prominent people think about it and try to identify what connects all of that together. This is our wiki, our forum, our newsletter that we don't do now, but it used to collect all the information about from many groups, and especially some memes on policy design or governance issues. But mostly, thanks for giving me the opportunity to present community. But when I was thinking about this talk today, I thought that it would be interesting to summarize. We did this all knowledge research, gathering, clusterization, and so on. And at some moment, we understood that this field is moved a lot by the experiments that are happening, and we need to do more experiments. So I'll touch on a few experiments I was participating in, and I hope we'll have another 5 minutes in the end for the questions. So one of the first experiments I started to work on is my company Fire Labs, which I used to work for 10 years. It continues to work now, but I'm transitioning to other things. I've ran this business for 10 years, and what I learned from doing it is that doing business looks a lot like surfing. I started to surf this year, and this metaphor of now there's so many waves that are going on, but you never know which wave will gonna work or how long it will survive. So for 10 years, we did around 6 or 5 major changes in the business, changing completely the market, changing completely the product, and so on. And at first I thought that there's just some mistakes I do. And it's clearly like that as well, because I was a newbie when we started that. But after a while, I saw that it's just like you never know what's going to happen. It's some mix of feelings, some experience, some advisors, and so on. But the longer we go, the more complex things we're trying to resolve, the more I see this complexity that is growing insanely. So, for example, you can see on this picture, we just did another like mapping of the industry, and there's like just a part of the topics to work with. And following that, in one person, having one director, CEO who knows everything, it just wasn't just working for us. So that led me as the CEO, as the person who was who everybody looked at to give a decision, working solution, and so on. When we were in more standard business, it was maybe easier. But in the in this like blockchain space, in this fintech space, with this streaming pace of news and stuff, I just couldn't be at the top. I didn't know what are the best like technologies to use and where do we find our customers. So I wanted to my question I started to ask myself, like, could we all in our team, we had 25 people now, could everybody in this team behave like a founder, and how do we do that? And the experiment lied around the use of holacracy, which is a method for self-organization. There's like wider method, sociocracy, and holacracy is a little like most like a Scrum in the IT development. It's clear prescribed way of running the organization with the constitution and so on. And if we ask this question, can everybody behave like a founder? After like 2 or 3 years of experimentation, I can say yes, but the number of founders diminishes. This was unexpected result of that, because first of all, yeah, the company became more resilient. I like from being the bottleneck of decisions, I started to be more like working more in creation. So I could, for example, think about the strategy or the ecosystem and so on, not deciding the everyday decisions with customers and so on. And they started to be resolved better because people at the place usually knew better what is going on. They didn't need to translate all the history to me. It all worked because of the trust, because before that we worked for 7 years, and I'm not sure if it could like easily work with the people who didn't know each other from the start. It really helped a lot to set this trust. But even with our long history, I started to see the conflict between like stakeholders, because like previously I was more of a manager and we had managerial agenda. The employees had employees agenda, and when we couldn't clearly articulate and talk about the problems or tensions that are there, the first thing that we lost was trust. And after the loss of trust, they usually like said people didn't want to engage on the same level as partners or entrepreneurs. And I started to work on that, to work on culture, trying to educate people, try to give them the perspective of not just day-to-day work and salary, but still my main outcome was that there was this book, Good to Great, about the companies who survive for long and have like nice result. And they also came to the same decision that who the people is the first essential factor, and what to do can be resolved just after that. The next experiment was done in DGov. So I started to think, okay, we have these systems distributed that can work, but we don't want, it's not that cool to build a distributed governance system for, I don't know, 7 people. It's also cool in a way, of course, but I've started to think what's next, where do we go next, and how technology can enable that. And as I mentioned before, we were in the search of scalable governance system. Can we make them? How do they work? And the main idea about that was DAOs, decentralized autonomous organization. In a way, DAO is usually what people mean about that is the mutual fund, in a way, where we can put our money, have different types of control over that, either majority control by voices or by shares or so on. And then we can decide together on when to spend funds or who can join our organization and so on. So it was quite interesting field. When the first DAO emerged, the DAO, it gathered, if I remember correctly, around like hundreds of millions. I don't remember specifically. And just after that, it was hacked, and significant part of the funds were like stolen, and then it led to the fork of the system, the whole Ethereum fork to a new chain. I'm not sure. Sorry, again, I understand I can say many specific words from the blockchain space. I'll try to explain them, though some specifics is quite, it needs quite like a language. And you can see here on the right the different types of people we try to engage. This is results of one of our surveys that we gathered: academics in the technology space, in the other humanitarian fields, entrepreneurs, developers, community builders, consultants, and so on, people from enterprises, to work together and to, to talk together and to find out these models, to discuss who knows what and so on. And the short answer to that is not sure. So we saw the Ethereum, for example, case. I can go a bit behind. So Ethereum is one of the major networks. I think it's second after Bitcoin, blockchain and evaluation. And it's known for really big developer like community. So it's one of the most biggest strengths of this protocol, and it works for quite a while, and all this DeFi stuff is working on that. DeFi is decentralized finance. And whenever somebody needs to change a protocol, for example, if you need to decide, if I send like money to the wrong address, can I get them back? Is there a mechanism for getting them back? Or the Ethereum is now developed on the grants from the Ethereum Foundation. But when the Ethereum Foundation will run out of funds, should we enable some mechanism to send some fees from transaction as payment to the developers, so they will continue to support the protocol? And all this question, you know, when nobody knows all the members, there are like thousands of users in Ethereum, you never know anybody, there's just addresses. You see some Twitter discussions, and there are some people who are quite visible, who are influencers, and they usually are setting the agenda. And for example, one of the experiments we run is that can we try to make a decision not in the field of like influencers, but rather in a debate way where personalities won't be such seen, but the main place would take the arguments. So for example, like this, like blue question was about this question on fees to developers, whether the network wants to do that. And you can see, for example, with red, that are the positions against some arguments that why it's bad because it wasn't agreed beforehand, or that it would lead to another fork or something, and green in favor. And also for every argument here, you can see in favor and against. And it creates a more complex topology of the like what community thinks, and the bolder the color, the more people kind of voted for that specific argument. And we did lots of things like that. We gathered councils, we did also like DAO and voting. But main outcome for me was that technology is just like, it's an enabler, but without the culture, without the more complex understanding of governance. That governance is not just voting, and voting can be used as the last step, but really like 80% of decisions, especially on the like early stages of the organization, they are done mostly informally. And we can see like Bitcoin as like first proto DAO in a way where the system sustains itself. It's you just install software and all the mechanisms are in there. It's working, it's extending, it's growing in value, but more complex stuff where we need to agree on where do we head, what is our mission, what are our rules. It's not just resolved by on-chain voting with the DAO, for example. So culture and soft governance mechanism are needed as well. So with this thoughts, I started this year about this technology being really cool, but not enough to build a like social institution organization. I slowly, we slowly as a world came to the pandemic, which started like in March, I think. And it wasn't intentionally, but with all these experiments I got, I wanted to check out if we can use the same practice. So we used them previously in the business, in the small business. We used them in the blockchain network. So now I wanted to try out it with the more like social movement NGO type of organization. And we established Impact UA, which during the COVID led the initiative and gathered around 400 volunteers to join the platform. This is the view of the gamified platform. We used Airtable for that. We tracked the results of the people, their satisfaction, their experiences with where they can help. And after 2 months of work, 10 successful projects in the field of medicine and helping COVID, we transitioned to achieving more of the sustainable development goals. Through all this time, like when the pandemic started, it was super unclear about the reaction of the government. How do we, how well we can manage that and so on. And many organizations were uncoordinated. So they just wanted to do something themselves, but they couldn't see what others are doing. So the question again was like, can we use collective intelligence for better coordination of all other types of businesses, like through these people, through this experience at the platform? And it worked, as I said. So we run some projects, but in organizations like that, participation is pretty fluid. So the stances, the desires, the motivation are coming from people, and it's really hard to plan if the person who's working with you will be there in a month, for example. And also without the economic stimulus, it was also less sustainable. So people worked for the idea, but after the medical crisis, the economical crisis started to be more scary. So this led me to think about putting it on some economic path with the use of social entrepreneurship maybe, or some endowment mechanics. And also all the groups were diverse, and it was like there could be maybe something that unites them, but still individualism was one of the main characteristics of every group. I see I have last minute, so finishing my talk is the last question I'm working on now is called like what is the most essential structure we could use? We have many circles who want to work together from different fields, from NGOs, businesses, volunteers, and so on. And now the organization is not putting this question. In this case, organization is the answer for me. So last 3 months, I'm working in the Ministry of Digitalization of Ukraine, trying to put all these ideas of the digital coordination of thinking about the like stakeholder cohesion together, and what we do now with the projects I'm working now is first of them is foresight, where I want to bring the whole industry in Ukraine. So working in the on the market of cryptocurrencies in Ukraine, setting it up, make it more efficient. We're working with all the companies in the market and other governmental bodies, and setting up the community structure, open processes, open strategies to establish the maximum available collaboration. We'll see how it works, right? It's just the start of the journey, but what I know is that it's always some but in the end. So I hope I can share some new learnings from that. Meanwhile, I want to invite you to join. If it was whatever I've told you was interesting and you want to learn more, please see we have many resources done through these years. And yeah, maybe we will have some time for the questions now.
This was awesome, Max. I can see that a lot of people are talking about having learnings out of this talk. Edward, do you want to share something with us? Is there any questions that we have from the public? We have Alexa, Daniel Moss, Anna Luisa, Hjalte. All right, so we don't have our next speaker up just yet, and we can easily have 5 more minutes to just discuss what was being said. No more questions. Max, I wanted to ask you, what was the platform that you used for the UA project? So for the COVID-related project, you had these with all those pictures. What was that?
Yeah, I can share you on the screen to show you more. Of course, it's unfortunately it's not so much in English, just partly maybe. But I see my laptop is almost dying, so it's why it's just so slow. Yeah. Let me. Maybe I'll send the link to it to watch closer. But oh my gosh, I see something's not working with my camera, right? Okay. Yeah, the main tool I found out through this work was Airtable. Airtable is one of the most interesting startups now that just recently reached, I think, $1 billion valuation. This is like Google spreadsheets on steroids, which will allow you to build easy CRM systems, gamified like leaderboards and stuff like that. And we gathered pretty full surveys on our volunteers. So we had like a smaller form that gathered just like essential information like email and so on. But then we did an interview to understand, for example, the team preference of the person or the goals like he or she is trying to achieve. Because, for example, like while in COVID, there were different directions of work. Somebody wanted to help doctors, somebody wanted to help the elders, and there were other groups that needed help. So in order to somehow structure that and get those people together who wanted to help specifically doctors, for example, right, with specific translations or some other services, we needed to build this like more sophisticated system. And then we used Telegram at start, but after some amount of people, Telegram just doesn't work as a community platform because you need different channels, like topics starts to like be invisible pretty soon if you have active chat. So having like we ended up using Discord, which is open source and available even easier than chat in some ways. Than Slack that most people used to.
Sounds awesome. I mean, we are using Discord, we're using Notion, but there is yet another platform. I'm sorry to hear that it's only in Ukrainian language. I would love to read more about it. Maybe you can share the link and people see it around. No, Kareem, I'm assuming that's Kareem. It's not Discord, it's another platform. Yet another one. It's like a multitude of all these platforms these days. Yeah, luckily we have people that are experimenting on it so that we can actually harvest all the knowledge and use the one that fits us best. We do have another question from Ana Luisa saying that they're creating a virtual organization in Latin America. OLADC, Organización Latinoamericana de Derecho Colaborativo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This concept you shared fits in their new organization, and she's curious if you would be able to share with them.
Oh, yeah, I would love to. I put my contacts to the chat.
Perfect.
So this is my Telegram and this is my email. Feel free to ping me. And just once more, I put a link to the DIGA Foundation for more research.
Perfect. We have coming up next, Africa Rising with Denise Cortes Kaiser. So I'm going to be slowly leaving you with that, Karim. And Max, thank you so much for coming and joining us. Thank you for sharing everything about DGov and all these holacracy and all the rest of the methods. I think it was very inspiring, and yeah, we learned a lot, and we learn every day something new.